I think it's fair to say that the human instinct is to travel and explore. It's taken us all the way to the moon and beyond. It's taken us to Mars. And within our own planet, more and more individuals are globe-trotting. The beautiful thing to me about travel is that very often during our journeys and during the various paths that we take, we end up discovering not just beautiful sights, sounds, and scenes, but also sort of deep realizations about ourselves. And joining us today is who is popularly known as socially wonderful, Deanna, all the way from England. She's a very popular YouTuber, a travel content creator who believes in slow travel and is very conscious of mindset. With her, we're going to explore travel and wellness. We're calling the session of Journeys Afar and Within. This is Talk Therapy brought to you by Driveway Devi. I'm Karthik on behalf of Driveway Devi, and I'm so grateful to Deanna for having made the time because, particularly, the life of a content creator, that too one who's traveling, I can only imagine how sort of chaotic and busy it is. So, thank you very much, Deanna, and a very warm welcome.
Thank you. And no worries. Thank you so much for having me. I feel honored.
So, if I may ask you, Deanna, because we obviously see a very public sort of side of you, which is through Socially Wonderful, we'd love to know a little bit about yourself in your own words.
Of course. So, obviously, my name's Deanna. I have been traveling now for a couple of years, I would say. I actually started my journey properly when I moved to America when I was 19. I'm 23 now. And I lived there for 2 years. I was a nanny over there. And it made me realize, because I went over there by myself, it made me realize I am more than capable to travel solo too, because obviously we sort of hold ourselves back when it comes to traveling, especially if we don't have the people who can come with us. And we're like, oh, I can't do that alone. I don't have the confidence. I don't know what I'm doing. But it sort of gave me the confidence because I was like, if I've done this by myself, I can travel by myself. So I started to. And then I just got the bug. And I just don't want to stop right now. I'm sort of on a wave and I'm just riding that wave until wherever that may take me.
That's wonderful. It's so ironic because the way you lead your life is such a counterpoint to how Indians tend to be, because culturally, our conditioning is to not leave the nest under any circumstance. Even if we go faluting about, we invariably return to it and to its safe and secure confines. But it's wonderful that you've been traveling since you were fairly young. I think it's important for us to acknowledge that while we talk about travel, there have been certain incidents that have taken place recently, most recently in my own country, with the absolutely tragic and horrific Air India air crash, where the entire sort of crew and passengers have been lost, many of whom were, of course, British citizens, because it was indeed an aircraft bound from here to London. I want to just take this opportunity to offer our condolences. And also, now that we have had some sort of time and distance from that terrible day, to say that perhaps one way of looking at this and moving forward and finding the courage as a collective people to move on is driven by that very elemental and instinctive urge to explore, which is what ultimately I think, sort of helps us come to terms with and navigate these kinds of mishaps that take place and carry on as a human race in our endeavors. So I just wanted to put that out there. We're also in an environment, Diana, where it's a very strange sort of world. So many nations are at war with each other. Now, I don't want to make this morose, but I think it's important for me to ask you, as somebody who's a traveler, that you go to so many diverse places in terms of culture, terrain, etc., languages. Um, Talk, if you will, about some commonalities, not differences, commonalities that you've observed during your years of travel that really genuinely unite us citizens of the earth into a common human race. There's enough that is going wrong because of our differences. Let's talk a little bit about what unites us.
Mm. I think when you stay in one place, you obviously just get the news of that one place. And depending on where you are, that news might be biased to a certain place. Speaking for someone who's from the Western world, we have very biased news to many of the other countries out there, which is really, really sad. So when you go to these places and you visit, or not even go to these places, but you speak to these people from these countries, you can learn so much about the people, which our own countries don't teach us. And I think for me, that was the most touching thing because when I have traveled, I love to speak to different people from all walks of world because at the end of the day, we are all on this planet just once, well, whatever you believe in. But right now, in this body we live in, we're on this planet once. And it's important to remember that this is our first time too in this body. So although we may make mistakes, although we may go through different challenges, because obviously some people are more privileged than others because of the circumstances they are brought up into, it's important to acknowledge that we're just trying our best. I think in life and the people I've spoke to and met, it's taught me a lot that although we come from different walks of life, although we have completely different lifestyles that we live, again, we're all the same. We all want the same. We all want to surround ourselves with love. We all want care. We all want compassion. We want that. And obviously there's a small percentage of people who probably don't want that, but also that is very rare in the actual grand scheme of things. And it's just inspiring because you meet these people and everyone has their own wishes, their own goals. And although my goals are probably different to yours, are probably different to theirs, we can all just uplift each other and support one another. And I think that is the beauty of life because I just think everyone should be equal because we are all the same. We are all just obviously from different places of the world. So that definitely, like, traveling to these places and speaking to these people teaches me that more and more and more. But it also just, it's as like an empath, it can be quite hard to speak to these people from certain places. Like when I was in Tanzania, I was having a tea next to the water, and this guy like joined me for a tea, and we started talking. And he was actually from Sudan, and his family were from Sudan. And at that time, I didn't know about what was happening in Sudan, and hearing everything that him and his family have had to go through, it was absolutely devastating. And like speaking to these people and speaking to people from these countries, it's devastating because, and what hurts my heart the most is that the narrative our countries are feeding us is so far from the actual reality. Because I go home and I hear the same thing about the country, but it's completely different, and they've switched it and they've changed it out like the people are in the wrong. But at the end of the day, we are all the same. The actual civilians and the actual everyday people want peace. They don't want that. And I think that is something which I think it probably definitely affects me the most because it's just sad. It honestly just breaks my heart.
Thank you for sharing that. Of course, the media point you brought out is very valid. And the disturbing thing is that the media, I don't think, in a single nation any longer is genuinely unbiased. I think media is skewed everywhere, motivated by perhaps the incorrect sort of motivations. But that's a whole separate debate. What I want to latch on to, what you've told, what you've shared so beautifully, and if I interpret that correctly and if I articulate it slightly differently, is that fundamentally our primal and primary goals and desires and aspirations is what unites us. We may take as individuals and as separate cultures different paths to it, but the final destination that a human being at a very fundamental level seeks is fairly united and common, which is love, which is acceptance, which is a certain amount of sort of prosperity for the self and for the family. I mean, these are really, it's really what it boils down to. It may sound simplistic.
No, 100% agree. And I think a lot of us in life, because we get taught from social media, from online, from school, we don't actually know who we are and what we actually want. And in life, it depends how much you want to figure out yourself. But the more you understand who you are and what you want out of life, you realize that actually, I don't want these grand things. All you need in life is love. And I know that sounds so like cliche and it sounds so, but having like people around you who support you, having people from all walks of life, like just cheering them on and just knowing that it's going to be okay, like we support you, like that is all people need. And I think it's important to remember that, especially during like hard times.
Well, certainly to somebody like myself, it sounds perfectly plausible. You're preaching to the choir when you talk about love, because I happen to belong to a country where our greatest and biggest movie superstar is the epitome of romance. So it's very, very much ingrained in us. I want to move a little bit more specifically to your own sort of philosophy and ethos and idea of travel, and I'm going to sound a bit, cheeky here, but we're also in an era where everything slow has suddenly become very fashionable. Whether it is slow cooking, slow fashion, slow, everyone's sort of going gaga about it. I want to understand from you, first and foremost, what exactly does slow travel mean, and why does it appeal to you?
Yes. So for me, slow travel is more about actually immersing myself in the places I visit. I when I lived in America, because of the short time I had, I'm aware I'm very privileged in the fact that I can slow travel, and it not everyone can. Because when I was in America, I had a short amount of time to go to explore these places, so I could only explore them in say 24 hours or 48 hours. But after coming back from there and realizing what I like to actually spend a long time in a place where I can actually meet with locals or even live with locals to understand their country and their culture in a different way. Because when you travel to, say, whether it's Europe or India or Tanzania, you are probably on a short amount of time, so you experience the touristy parts, which is amazing, and if you love that, that is incredible. But for me, so travel is actually embracing a country for what it is and understanding it, because then you look at it in a completely different light. When I was in Tanzania, I was there for 2 months. It was definitely, it had its ups, its downs. It was hard at times. It was probably one of the toughest places I've traveled in terms of like, because I wasn't mentally in a place where I wanted to be. And that was amazing. I definitely want to go back and spend longer. India, I was there for nearly 3 months, and I'll actually be going back again, because India is massive and there's so many places that are still you have to explore. But for me, it's taken time to truly see what is in front of you and embrace it all. It's not for everyone, I'm aware. When I was in Thailand, I stayed in Chiang Rai for a week, and normally everyone recommends 2 days, if that. And don't get me wrong, after a week, I was a bit like, maybe I should leave now because I was getting a bit too comfortable. But I feel like when you're there longer, you just get a different outlook on it and you can experience it in a better way. That's just my opinion, but I know I come from a privileged place to say that.
I think it really boils down to personal disposition, because you can have the other end of the spectrum, which seems to be gaining more and more popularity, which is really, again, led and guided by this whole Instagram obsession of, oh my God, like you have to visit these 30 places within 2 hours and, have that selfie so that you can share it. And so you find more and more people going on these whirlwind tours. But to me, if I was to draw an analogy, it's really like window shopping versus going into a store and
Mm.
spending time and having something tailor made. It's really that different, wherein Absolutely. I mean, you really truly only experience a place and a culture and a people if you invest that kind of time in it. So it makes a lot of sense. In your bio, it also says slow travel and mindset. Talk a little bit about that part.
Yes, so for me, mindset is something which is a big part of my life. When I was living abroad, I had people around me. I was very lucky with the people I had around me, but in the same breath, because they were working, I basically didn't have anyone. All my family were thousands of miles away, and obviously with the time difference, it's hard to speak to them. So the only person I truly had was myself. And I'd go on walks and stuff, but I would be in my mind. And the only way to really get out of my head and like get it all out would be socially wonderful. And I would just use this platform to just let it all out, whether it be about if I was happy, I would be like, oh, I'm so grateful. If I was struggling a bit, I would explain my struggles. And those struggles could be from anything from like body image to like just mentally having a bad day. And I think it's so important to share stuff like this because a lot of the time we think we're a target, we think it's the world against us. So when you use these platforms to share that you're actually not alone and that people do go through these same struggles, it's just a nice place to feel connected. I remember when I came back home, it was my first month after living abroad, and I was in the gutter. I was like, oh, like I'm so down, like I don't know what I'm doing with my life. And I put up a post regarding like moving back home after living abroad. And I got deep in the caption because that's what I love. I love to get let it all out. Um, and it reached like over 1 million people, and I had thousands of people, like hundreds of people, just DMing me their experience and saying thank you so much. I thought I was alone, and I just remember reading all of these crying because I was like, in a world in a day and age where it's so social, we all feel so alone, and that is heartbreaking. Like that is honestly heartbreaking. So if I guess it's just to like tell people that you've got this, and you know, I like to be a little like encouragement because sometimes people don't have that. So even if they don't know me or I don't know them, I'm cheering them on.
Well, not only is it heartbreaking, it's such a huge irony because you're ostensibly being followed by millions and millions of people, yet you're completely isolated and alone. And I'm so glad that people such as yourself and a few others are now presenting facets of themselves that aren't always and 24/7 perfectly manicured, filtered, beautiful looking and sounding and seeming imagery because that's so unrealistic. I'm glad that we're seeing the dark side of the moon, and I'm even more glad that you are soliciting the kind of responses that you are. Because my next question would have been that on occasions where you have, sort of shared unsavory places that you've been at mentally or psychologically, what's the kind of response you've got? And you've sort of already, shared some of that.
Yeah, yeah. It depends on the type of thing I speak about, and sometimes it's really hard, especially now because I've got like more of a following, so it's quite intimidating at times. But then I just have to remind myself like this might have one person, but the responses majority of the time are like lovely, like they're really supportive. And if I get responses where maybe they're struggling too, or they um are going through something, I would try to just let them know that they got this, because at the end of the day that sometimes is all we need. Just that little bit of encouragement goes a long way, I think.
So true. I want to come to two specific aspects again of travel and get your sort of views on it. One is the fact that you're fairly young and you're venturing to places that by all accounts would be considered risky in some form or the other. What are some sort of doubts or fears you experience, if at all you do, when that happens, and how do you sort of cope? And yeah, let's sort of get into that first, and then we'll move on.
Of course. So first of all, I got to say I get a lot of questions being like, how are your parents okay with like this lifestyle you live? And the answer is they're not. I come from I'm a very family oriented person. My family mean the world to me, and my mum, bless her, I stress her out so much, and I feel so bad for her, but I just have to remind her that I'm going to be okay. The places I choose to go come from my heart. Like I sort of have these places where I'm like, okay, I feel drawn to them, so I need to go to them. Tanzania was like an opportunity came up to do volunteering, so I was like, I'll give it a go. I was very nervous before going. I was really nervous, I'm going to be honest. But again, I didn't really do my research into it. So, which is bad, I am aware. Learned that now. But again, I trusted my gut more than anything. And if I feel as though I'm going to be fine, I genuinely can sit here, look you in the eye, and tell you I'm going to be fine. Before going to India, I had so many people. I was meant to go last year in September, but I listened to everyone, and I ended up not going because I got in my head. I was like, maybe I'm not prepared. So then I waited a bit and I got more research into it. And before going, I had so many people over here be like, why India? Like, are you not scared? It's not safe for women. It's not safe for you. And I was like, I just looked at them and I said, I'm going to be fine. Like, I knew in my heart and in my gut that I was going to be fine. And when I go to these places, I try to either go with someone I know or try and find a local who, again, I trust. And it's hard to trust someone when you don't know them, especially if you know them online. But again, if you have a somewhat good intuition and you have a gut which you truly listen to and like respect its decisions, then it's done me right, touch wood. But when I was in India, I was mainly with locals or I was with friends who I met online. But every single person I traveled with, I met online. And moving forward, I think I'm gonna stick with that again because then they know the area. But if something happens and I get a bit stressed or like it's hard to avoid that because obviously in life, like you're not aware of what can happen and you don't know what can happen and it's risky. And when those situations happen, I try not to get too stressed about it because the more stress happens, it's just not going to help you. You're going to end
True.
up more in your head. It's going to be worse for you. But I try to sit down, breathe, and remind myself. And I know this sounds crazy to some, but this is what helped me. I think about myself in the future when it's past. So, for instance, even if I'm sick when I'm abroad, I think of myself better. And the thought of that, I'm like, cool, I'm going to be better soon. Like it helps me. And I know that sounds crazy, but this is genuinely what helps me in these situations. And even if something bad happens, I just remind myself it's going to pass. Like it's literally going to pass. These tough moments are going to be for a couple of minutes, hours, maybe days. But there will be a time where there will be light at the end of the tunnel and I can look back and think, wow, I learned from that. This is what I learned. So that is probably what helps me massively. I know it's a bit iffy
But
advice.
it actually it's quite philosophical. You know, in the Sanskrit language, there's a beautiful word called anitya, which means transitional. And there's a lovely organization that we routinely work with in the mental health space. They're called Seek Anitya because their whole motto and what they're trying to tell people in distress is that it will pass.
Yeah.
That's just a universal truth, and I know that in given circumstances, it's very difficult to have that presence of mind. But if you can tell yourself that, your chances are you'll be okay.
Yeah. It can be difficult at times, but I just have to constantly drum it in my mind. Otherwise, I'm gonna get in a deep pit and be like, oh my gosh, something bad's gonna happen to me. But also, I know this, I don't want this to sound morbid or anything, but like life is never guaranteed. Like we are proven that every day with unfortunately what happened with the Air India flight, which is horrible. But a family which touches my heart on that flight is the dad with the family, and they were going to live in London. That broke my heart. And with my page, I tried to tell everyone that you actually are not guaranteed tomorrow, no matter how much you exercise, how much you eat well. We are never guaranteed tomorrow. I'm not guaranteed an hour from now. So, like, you I try to remind, it's hard, it's really hard, but reminding yourself that like what is going to happen is going to happen. I can't eat myself up inside about something which is going to happen in the future when we're not guaranteed the future. So that also is something I'm trying to learn more and more. It's hard because obviously you can't help but stress about future or stress about the situations you're in. But the more I'm trying to remind myself this, I've realized the less stress I've got, and actually it's helped me in day-to-day life.
Absolutely. I mean, the thing is that nobody's suggesting that because life is as unpredictable as it is, that you go sort of, jump off the terrace and be like, oh, nothing will happen to me. But I think a certain amount of balance and let's call it a calculated risk is certainly worth taking, because if you feel and fear that, oh my God, let me not travel to India, or for example, I don't want to travel to the United States, particularly these days. And if I say that, I'm going to just sit in my cocoon and my extremely safe, robust home, if it is my time, the wall of my home will collapse. So, there's
Yeah.
really no point
No,
in
agreed.
sort of being that extreme. Finally, and we began with this, and I think it's an appropriate way to sort of conclude. Of course, there are all of those wonderful benefits of life experience and getting to know people and cultures and discovering new places. What are some things perhaps that traveling has done for you or does for you from a psychological or cerebral standpoint? I mean, have your travels, for instance, you find made you a little more resilient, more tolerant?
Yes. It's definitely changed me as a person. I feel much more calmer. I've always been a very like positive like person, but I have noticed since traveling and seeing the world in a different light, like I have become sort of at peace with myself and my surroundings around me. Don't get me wrong, sometimes I'm learning to, if say for instance, I'm living with my family and they aggravate me, to not let that bother me, because that I can just remove myself from that
Hmm.
situation. And if it's not just family but anyone around, if they say something I disagree with, that's fine. Like that's their opinion. I shouldn't let it bother me, because me letting their opinions or other people um affect me is only damaging me. That's not damaging them. So if I can take a step back and realize like I'm not in control of them, I'm in control of me, that definitely helps. Yeah, and the people I've met when traveling, even in some random places, I think who you are inside and who you want to attract, you will attract those people. I remember I always said to my family, I was like, I don't understand how I end up meeting such incredible people when I travel. And it's because like I'm not, God, that makes me sound like I'm big headed. No, but like I meant like-minded people. I obviously give that energy off to the universe or whatever you believe in. So if that is the energy you give off, you will attract that. So the like-minded people I end up meeting and having these deep conversations with, because not everyone wants to go deep. When you meet these people, you're like, damn, okay, I'm not the only one, and life is out there. You just have to, not even out there, it can be on your front doorstep. There are people around who feel the same way around you. And it's just, that's definitely something for me, which has just been like, wow, okay. So I've definitely changed a lot, and I've been more calm the older I get, because at the end of the day, you have one life. So it's pointless stressing about the things you can't control. Um, what I'm going to do in 10 years, the job I'm going to have, am I going to have a family? Oh, am I going to do my family proud? At the end of the day, you just have to focus on what you want, and making yourself proud. If I know it's so hard for me to say that, because I come from a country where like I can sort of do what I want. Like I know obviously in India, like a lot of the time with jobs and stuff, like it's very like family choose these type of things.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I'm aware in certain situations it's very, very hard. And it's for me to say that is some people might be like, you don't
It's a
understand.
privileged position to be in, let's say.
Yeah, massively. And it's hard because I like it's obviously not just India too. There's like Mexico's like this, and there's a lot of countries like this. Um, but I think as long as you know who you are within yourself and as long as you're happy with the life you're living, even if it's not, say for instance, you are doing a job you don't want to do, make sure you're doing something which you want to do because then that just makes life a little bit easier, I think.
Most definitely. And I suspect, I think you might agree, that had you not been traveling and had you not been exposed, you wouldn't have been half as aware and therefore half as grateful for the life that you have back home.
No, 100%. It even like boils down to like little things like um I don't know, like a shower. And I know that
Oh,
sounds crazy, but like
absolutely.
I've spent like 3 months using a bucket. I love a bucket, don't get me wrong, but like it's just the little things that we take for granted on a daily basis. And when like I'm back, say I'm back to work in the UK, and I used to live, I used to work at a bar. So I deal with different types of people. I deal with some kids because it was in a kids venue too. Um, and seeing how this is it's off topic, but seeing growing up and being in the Western world, I obviously working with the kid in America and seeing the kids in America, it really, really upset me to see what the kids were turning into nowadays because they were very ungrateful. They would just expect, and not be thankful for what they have in front of them, sorry. Moving abroad or traveling, especially when I was in Tanzania, it widened my view on life and of children and stuff because I was like, there are kids who are literally being children so grateful for the little things. They're playing with a stick. They're not crying because they don't have the latest toy. And it just made me realize it was like it's the environment we're in. We just see what we want to see. Horse view, like see what we've got to see. But as soon as you broaden your horizon, you see the world in a different light. So it definitely has changed me 100%. I think I would be naive to sit here and say, yeah, I would have been the same. No, I really wouldn't. I'm a different person to me now as I was when I was 18.
Well, for the better, which is wonderful. Last question. It's a bit of a tricky one, and actually it just popped into my head because we've been talking about developing a certain appreciation and openness, an accepting sort of outlook of different perspectives, etc. One could sum that up in the word maturity. And so, while this maturity comes to you as a consequence of your travels and exposure, does it in any way compromise the childlike wonder and fascination of going to a new place?
For me personally, no. I think I get very excited, as you can probably tell in my videos. I get very excited about the places I visit. I probably come across like I've not done much in my life in my videos. I'm like, wow, like this is crazy. So I know it probably comes across like she like has this girl even done anything? Trust me, I have, but it's just it amazes me every time I see it. Like the reaction I have is my genuine reaction. I need to change, like, improve my vocabulary a bit with it and maybe stop using wow. But like the fact, it's just little things sometimes which I look at and I'm like, this is incredible. And to someone from that country who may be used to that, they're like, why is this girl being so dramatic about, I don't know, like a little thing? And it's like, because I don't have that in my country and I'm not used to this on a daily basis. And I think sometimes the childlike probably goes, but I think who I am as a person, I think it will always stay because genuinely I do just get amazed by the little thing. My favorite thing is when it's like golden hour and the light hits the leaves on the tree. That's my favorite thing. I can just sit there staring and be like, wow, this is incredible. So I think, well, I hope I never lose
Well,
it.
we are absolutely delighted that you clearly and tangibly retain that childlike fascination and wonder. May you continue to be delighted and in turn delight others. And I must say, Deanna, to your face, that you are, in many ways, and the way you are and the way you sort of present yourself, extremely unfiltered. And that's so refreshing to see. So I think that's a quality that we hope and are pretty confident you will sustain. All the very best with future endeavors, travels across the planet, and it's been a wonderful, wonderful chat. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed. I hope you gained something from this. Sorry, sometimes
Most
when I
definitely.
speak, my brain is just when I get words out, it's just jumbled. So I hope
Well,
some of it
you
makes
know,
sense.
I can tell you as a communications expert that you were very articulate.
Oh wow! No, head's massive now.
All right, then. Take care.
Thank you so much.